You know, when I'm out shopping for new stamps for my collection, or old stamps I should say, there are three things that I look at that are most important to me. One is an unusual backstory. That's a must. Two is whether or not it's a pleasing design. And three, the condition of the stamp. Now sometimes I skip on condition stamps to be able to add something that I wouldn't normally be able to add to my collection. But at any rate, those are the things that are most important to me. Now, the Graf Zeppelin stamps that we're going to look at today, issued by many postal services around the world during the 1930s, meets all of those three conditions. They are incredible stamps. Now, the Graf Zeppelin, well, they were airships. They were huge airships. They were invented and named for a man, Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, and he pioneered the development of the rigid airships. So called because they had a frame inside of the balloon that kept a shape, a form, not just like a hot air balloon or something like that. Anyways, they were used as airliners, but were quickly replaced in the 1930s by airliners like are used today. The reason they died out so quickly is because hydrogen was used as the lighter than air gas, and hydrogen is extremely volatile, flammable in the extreme. Now, the Hindenburg sealed the fate of the airships, I believe. When on May 6, 1937, in Manchester Township, New Jersey, it caught fire while trying to dock with its mooring mast at the Naval Air Station at Lakehurst, and 35 people lost their lives out of 97 people who were on board. They were luxury, but they were dangerous, and they were expensive. There are still many, though, affordable stamps or stamp issues from the Zeppelin era that are available and are reasonably priced that the average collector, like myself, can add to the collection, or a collection. And if you have a nice large budget, then there are some very fine historic pieces available. I have a piece that I ordered yesterday, so it's not here for me to show you, but I'll be doing a separate video on that. But it is an actual envelope cover that flew on the maiden voyage of the Hindenburg, and that's probably the most I've paid for a cover like that ever, but I'm anxious to get that. So anyways, check out the three Zeppelin stamps that I'm going to show you right now from Paraguay, and they were issued in 1937. These are three classics. The design is stunning, and they are a nice large stamp, and they're just very nice. Now I'm going to show you a few more stamps while I tell you the strange history behind the Zeppelin stamps. It is rather a curious arrangement between the company and the governments. I am going to quote an article by a Cara Giamaio, Giamaio, and that can be found in its entirety at Atlas Obscura here on the web. Now I quote, "Over the next few weeks, the Graf Zeppelin would complete its first Pan-American tour, flying from Rio de Janeiro and then back over the Atlantic to Spain and its home country, Germany. Although much glitz and glamour accompanied the airship's coming and goings, its journey was funded by something more unusual. Those sacks of mail via the stamps affixed to the letters inside are what in a large part funded the Zeppelin flights," end quote. Operating costs were through the roof. They were high. Passengers did pay steep prices for tickets, but the airship could only hold about 20 passengers at the time, which didn't let them recoup a whole lot of money, on a flight. So the owners tried many things to beef up revenue, but nothing really worked very well. And so they came up with an interesting solution to the problem. Now let's return to the article I was just reading from briefly here, and I quote again. "The Graf's parent company, German Zeppelin Airship Works, decided to recoup costs by commissioning special stamps from the countries on the tour route. Only letters bearing those special stamps would be accepted onto the airship, which would then deliver them to their various destinations. This was the only commercial transatlantic airmail option available at the time, and was days faster than sending a letter by boat. And I will end quote there again. Brazil, Bolivia, Germany, and Spain all produced the Zeppelin stamps, with 93% of the income from each stamp going to the German Zeppelin airship works. The U.S. Post Office did finally get on board with it, but not until after much debate. It was called a goodwill gesture to Germany, with the U.S. also giving 93 cents revenue off from each stamp sold to the airship works. But we Americans had to make a buck too. I tell you, there's got to be money in it somewhere. And so here was their plan, the U.S. Post Office. Stamp collecting was an extremely popular hobby back then, and they were in hopes that the enthusiastic collectors would buy up most of the issues, keeping most of those stamps out of circulation, which ensured that the post office would keep the lion's share of the money. So, presumably from reading that, if it wasn't actually put on the ship and canceled, then the airship didn't get any money for that sale of that particular stamp. So, here in the States, there stamp which was green. Then there was a brown one for $1.30, and also a $2.60, which was blue. Well, it didn't plan out the way the post office had hoped it would, unfortunately for them. Most of the 3 million stamps that were printed had to be destroyed. Of course, this made the small amount of the stamps out there mildly rare and expensive, and to add something like that to my collection, an average collector, probably wouldn't happen if I didn't win the lottery, you know. But there are still many, many, many fascinating things from that era to collect. So, anyways, they were expensive. There was another Zeppelin stamp issued here in the USA on October 2nd, 1933, and it is called the Baby Zepp. And the Baby Zepp, which has a face value of 50 cents, this was issued for the Century of Progress exhibition, due in part to the Great Depression. 50 cents for a single stamp was a lot at that time, and that limited the sales of the Baby Zepp. So the stamp did not sell well. The U.S. Post Office destroyed 97% of them, making this another pricey issue for us collectors to drool over. But actually, depending on condition, you can find a Baby Zepp for under $50. I just don't usually spend that much on an issue for my collection. These were amazing aircraft and were luxury through and through. They were iconic, and that era of aviation was just, had to be an amazing time to live through. And you talk about the cover, you know, I was talking about the cover that I just bought from 1928 that flew on the maiden flight of the Hindenburg. I'm anxious to show you one of the more historic pieces that I have in my collection. So, I hope you enjoyed the video. I love you all much. God bless you. And I will see you real soon, God willing.